to choose from, plus a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you more choices with pre-owned cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. More than any other dealer in the area, plus exceptional service, selection, savings, and financing options, and top dollar for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with 11 new car brands and over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. And we're proud to support our local schools and community. The Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier car dealer, locally and family owned for over 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Hey there, fellow travelers. It's me, the Hotel Whiz. Before you go anywhere, call me day or night for hotel rates too low to publish. I'll save you up to 75% on over 500,000 hotels across the globe. You see, I've already done the research, so you don't have to spend time online trying to find the best deal. That's up to 75% off. Just call me, the Hotel Whiz. It's a free call, and you get instant access to rates too low to publish with no cancellation fees.
Make a free call now and save up to 75% off your hotel rooms the next time you're going somewhere for business or pleasure. Call the Hotel Whiz now and get instant access to rates too low to publish. 800-378-2714. 800-378-2714. 800-378-2714. Call the Hotel Whiz right now for rates too low to publish. 800-378-2714.
Looking for that one place to find out information you want that used to be in the morning paper? How about trying the LynchburgPortal.com? On-demand news from Bill Trefiro. On-demand weather daily from VTRN in-house staff meteorologist Matt Ferguson. Classic hits from the 70s, 80s, and 90s on the Rewind 1039 stream. The best talk shows and CBS News every 30 minutes on the WIQO and WGNN streams. The best play-by-play and the Fast Lane with Ed Lane on the VTRN Sports WVGM stream. A business directory from the Lynchburg Business Alliance. Up-to-date events from the Lynchburg Tourism Site. Great discounts from InsaneRadioDeals.com and many more ideas on how to promote your business. And it can all be found on the LynchburgPortal.com. That's the LynchburgPortal.com.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Bill Parcells, the coach, not the analyst, once said, "You are what your record says you are." True. Or hashtag facts, as people like to say in this day and age. But not all losses are created equal. TJ, if there's an indictment on football in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it's the fact that this past weekend featured losses by 4 of the 5 teams that play 1A FBS football in Virginia. And the only one that got a victory is the team that will actually be heading to Blacksburg this coming weekend in a game that you can hear this Saturday night. Might want to hear it because I don't know if you want to watch it at the rate Virginia Tech is playing. Old Dominion taking on Virginia Tech this coming weekend. But Old Dominion take their win, even that, with a grain of salt because it was coming off the loss to Indiana, and they knocked off North Carolina Central, a 1A FCS program from your neck of the woods, like a block from TJ's house down in the triangle of North Carolina. So that's the reality of where we are. We are so pained here, TJ, to start the fast lane that we're discussing how not all losses are created equal, which should speak to the fact that this past weekend in football was not exactly one for the ages, at least in terms of positivity, as we will grapple for straws perhaps, but some level of optimism, although I think actually one of the losses you can look at and say, I see some silver linings in that.
Yeah.
the JMU loss to Louisville. They were close late in that game. Louisville's a top team in the ACC. I think Miami and Florida State at this point look like the two best teams in the ACC. Yeah. Clemson, they're 1-1. They haven't looked great in their one victory. They looked, even more anemic offensively in their loss, but maybe they'll get it together. But Louisville, they look pretty good, and they seem to have a coach in Jeff Brom who, has got a pretty good track record from both Purdue and obviously his time at Louisville. So, I think there's reason to sit there and kind of put JMU's in a different spot. But everybody else in the Commonwealth of Virginia, painful as it is right now, it's not fun at all, TJ.
No, if I had to rank the losses based off who had it worse, I would say Liberty, because that was a 50-50 game, but UVA at number 2, just because everyone felt like UVA was going to win that game because not a lot of people trusted NC State. But number 1, just because of the lead they had in the first half, and to just watch it crumble to where Lane Stadium went from sold out to empty real fast. I got to give that hurt to Virginia Tech at number 1. That was painful to watch.
I don't think there's even a question about that. I mean, at this point, we're grateful to be carrying Virginia Tech football on the VTR in Sports app and asking your smart speaker, open VTR in Sports, because I don't know how many people want to be watching Virginia Tech football on TV at the rate they're going. So just listen to us, and then you can watch games, hang out with friends, whatever you care to do on a Saturday night. Just fire up the old app, and you can listen to us on your home for tons of great play-by-play for free, rather than having to pay your hard-earned money to watch a mediocre product. See, that's the one that's by far the most agonizing loss of the weekend. Again, the least is JMU against Louisville. Duke's fought hard in that game. Louisville with, I know it's weird to say a backdoor cover when you are the team that's the favorite and cover the spread, but ride with us. Louisville, depending on where you got the number, winning by 2 touchdowns, 13.5 to 14.5. So, always get the best of the number if that's your thing. But Louisville got a real stern test from a JMU team that I know South Florida has gotten a lot of buzz. We'll see exactly where those teams are going forward. If Boise State slips up compared to last year with no Ashton Genty, if things unravel at Florida, which I think is going to be a more common theme than ever, particularly with any program right now, is what's the fight factor versus the quit factor when if you're a good program, in FBS, but if you're a good program in a Power 4 conference and you all of a sudden can't play for a conference championship, how many of your players have one foot out the door to get a better opportunity? How many of them may have it out the door anyway if you're a good program, but at least can be mature enough to fight for their current team, knowing that if they perform well, it may elevate their value somewhere else. But the other thing is you're going to find programs like Florida State last year was a great example of this. If you're a Virginia Tech fan, you hope you don't get in this category, but I wouldn't rule it out. And that is the idea of teams just throwing the towel in earlier than ever. Hey, I got mine. I got paid. This thing is crumbling at the seams. I'm going to, have a hamstring injury mysteriously so that I really don't have to risk wear and tear so I can go somewhere else. I think that's a real possibility. But Virginia Tech's by far is. The big picture reason by far, TJ, is that I think we've reached the point in Brent Pry's tenure where you can just say this is not working. Like, here's the question that I will ask, and you can chime in. Fastlane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We will do a deeper dive on this probably tomorrow in the Fast Lane, but in case we don't, let's get it out there. Is Brent Pry to Virginia Tech what Mike London was to Virginia? In this sense, Brent Pry at Virginia Tech did not succeed the legend. Al Groh succeeded in Walsh, and then it was London after Groh. Pry did not succeed Beamer. It was Fuente in between the two of them. So similar in the pecking order. They're likable people. They're both coaches that the fan base warmed up to immediately because they replaced a coach that was mediocre and a lot colder. Al Groh at Virginia and Justin Fuente at Virginia Tech. More news on him in that regard. But the results are just not there, and it becomes apparent over a period of time. I'll never forget Mike London. I was at a restaurant in downtown Lynchburg that has since shuttered their doors because they didn't take advantage of InsaneRadioDeals.com and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Let that be a lesson to you, by the way. But my wife and I were at that, and it was when Virginia lost to North Carolina. And Virginia got blindsided by an onside kick after a North Carolina touchdown to take the lead. Heels recover the onside kick. Game over because Carolina can kneel down. And Virginia they were not prepared for it. They didn't have the right alignment and formation there. It was one of many times where you could sit there and go, Mike London, great guy, but relative to the competition in the ACC, he was outcoached. Now, good for Mike London. He's bounced back at William & Mary. They're a team that has been at the top of the CAA, and he's probably a better fit for that type of program anyway. And they've actually put a number of guys into the NFL draft. Maybe the next time TJ chats with Matt Miller of ESPN.com, they will discuss some of those because they had a great chat on Friday. Fastlane, Ed Lane, where you listen to podcasts, because right there.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
But is Mike London to Virginia now what Brent Pry is becoming to Virginia Tech, in the sense that Brent Pry galvanized Hokie fans when he got there? Brent Pry is a great rah-rah guy, but the X's and O's are just not there. You were there in person in Blacksburg while I was listening Saturday night, being a good husband and dad, getting my kids to bed on time, which is a chore for 7-year-old boys, but getting them to bed on time. And I was listening on the VTRN Sports app, and Virginia Tech gets the lead. And then they unravel in the second half. I mean, it was painful how bad they unraveled, to the point where I had no problem dozing off by the end of that. 20-10, Hokies lead at halftime. Vanderbilt scores touchdowns on 75, 56, and 72-yard drives, the first 4 of the second half. And all of a sudden, what was once a 20-10 Virginia Tech lead turns into a 43-20 Vanderbilt demolition of Virginia Tech, where the Hokies gave up 262 yards rushing, 7.1 per pop. A defensive-minded coach in Brent Pry once again struggled to stop a run scheme. Rutgers last year. This year it's Vanderbilt, where you put misdirection together and there's certain fits and schemes that just aren't working. And you could argue Vanderbilt, the season opener last year as well, and they get out coached. And it becomes apparent that you like the coaches, but from the raw X's and O's standpoint, they're just not getting it done. And, again, there's an even bigger picture of who makes the decision and where Virginia Tech goes and how you turn all this together so quickly, knowing that you may have to replace a football coach and the cost of keeping him around can be bigger than the cost of not keeping him around. But to me, you're right, TJ. If you're stacking up the losses this weekend in the Commonwealth of Virginia, for the reasons you mentioned and the reasons that we just discussed a moment ago, I don't think it's a question the Virginia Tech Hokies loss is by far the most earth-shattering loss, because nobody expected Virginia to go undefeated. No. They're not. Nobody expected Liberty to go undefeated, although there was a more reasonable path to that. And they had a lot of self-inflicted mistakes, and we may get into that next day or two into the week. And JMU, everyone knew that the trip to Louisville was the most likely of all of them to be a trip-up game, and it was, and the Dukes fought hard. Virginia Tech Vandy was a chance to finally get a win over a Power 5 program for the first time since I was there at the dump in Landover against West Virginia in 2017. We're talking BC before COVID. We're talking the other BC in my wife's world and mine before children. Although she has a daughter from her first marriage, but let that not get in the way of a great one-liner. So Virginia Tech's in that spot now where the loss not only was demoralizing from the way it unfolded, but the fact that now if you're a Virginia Tech fan, you got to go through the remaining 10 games of the year having the understanding that you're probably not going to go 10-0. It's unlikely to go 9-3 or 8-2 to where you can have what you believe is a season that represents a reasonable turnaround. And therefore, 7-5, 6-6 or worse, you're down 2 to 3 offensive linemen, which that unit wasn't good for the starters. Imagine what the backups are going to do. And a coach that's already in a prove-it year on the hot seat, and you may need to get a new athletic director. I don't think there's a question. The most painful loss and the most impactful one on a scale of most painful to least, Virginia Tech is runner away of the most painful from the weekend.
No, and I think what hurts the most is look at their schedule, Ed. After Richmond should be an easy win for them, but
ODU,
I'm sorry. I'm thinking the future. Forgive me. But they're facing off against ODU next week, but then they got to go to NC State. Not to mention they bring Louisville and Miami home soon. They've got some easy home games outside of that, but there's just not a world where I don't see VT not reach 7-5 or 6-6, and dare I say 6-7 if they blow another bowl game.
Oh, no question. I mean, I think at this point, if you're at 6-6 at Virginia Tech, I don't think you even care about the bowl game. It may have vibes of the Fenway Bowl against Maryland when Brent Pry was taking over and Maryland ran roughshod over the Hokies 52-10 in a game you had to watch because we weren't carrying it on the VTR and Sports app to bail our Central Virginia audience and those that listen across the Commonwealth for free on that app. So you had to actually watch and endure that game. But this is where Virginia Tech, they are right now. Yeah. And so that's the case. Like to Liberty, I can understand the frustration. I completely get that. But Virginia Tech, we're at the point where this is not an unreasonable question that was asked of Brent Pry in the postgame press conference the other night.
Brent, one national reporter, Ross Dellinger, called the situation in Blacksburg getting hot. Vegas said had you as the highest odds of the first coach fired. How much pressure are you feeling at this point?
Yeah, I'm not. We don't. I tell the players to ignore the noise. I learned that a long time ago. This is not the first time that, we've been in situations like this. So, the expectations here are to win. I get that. That's why I wanted to be here. I'm not happy with where we're at right now, not from a win standpoint.
And I think this is the other thing is that he's more reasonable even than Mike London, where, you're talking about, positivity, but he's at least acknowledging the elephant in the room. But, this is what happens. You get coaches that are optimistic. They're rah-rah guys. They're great cheerleaders. How much of that even does that matter in terms of motivation, or just get the coaches that have the schematic edge? And if you give them the NIL resources, they can win. I think you need the blend of it still because football is a run through a wall for your coach sport, even at the highest level. I mean, I'm watching the documentary on the Dallas Cowboys. I'm back in their glory days, back when they were, as the weatherman reminds us.
It's looking a little bit like those Dallas Cowboys is peaking in the 90s.
I'm still on that part of the documentary on Netflix on the Cowboys, but Jimmy Johnson was a master at knowing how to push those buttons, but he also was very gifted tactically in knowing how to bring the right people on board and let them coach themselves. Like there were other elements to his game. Virginia Tech, they made a lot of mistakes in terms of staff hiring for Brent Pry, much like you could argue Mike London did with the staff around him at Virginia. Not to mention that as great as they were as rah-rah guys, attention to detail was not there for in-game decisions. So that's the biggest one of the weekend. And we'll get into Virginia Tech more as this week unfolds. But if you look at the others, we just touched on JMU. I put them in a separate category. They fought hard at Louisville. If that's their only loss this year, if they only lose one, it still is a successful year. And if JMU goes 11-1 with a relatively close loss, 14 points at Louisville on a Friday night, where they fought hard to the end and had a chance late in the game, then they are in contention to be a college football playoff team. They'll probably need help. South Florida is going to need to lose.
Florida has to lose.
And South Florida is not only have to lose to Miami this week, but you probably need Florida to implode so that win at Florida early in the year doesn't look as good.
Exactly.
And if you're JMU, you need Louisville to win so that the win does look good.
Yeah.
But, I don't know what the odds will be. I think JMU should be a favored at Liberty entering the game next week. They're right now looking like the better team. Now, Liberty can get it turned around. I get the whole, what do we know about Jamie Chadwell and his staff? And I will grant you there's some evolution from Chadwell's success previously at Coastal and even in the first year at Liberty to now at the transfer portal. But the offensive system, generally speaking, has shown up over a period of time with inferior talent than what Liberty has. And I do believe they got one of the best offensive line coaches in the country in Bill Durkin, who is going to be able to right the ship in that regard. So there are pieces in place. For Virginia, the schedule is just so easy that even though their run defense was abysmal at NC State and Virginia had over 500 yards of offense, they couldn't slow down NC State at all. And they looked like they had no adjustments on the defensive side of the ball, not to mention the late throw by Chandler Morris. It's reasonable to criticize him. It may only be one throw, but when you come to a place because of the transfer portal and because of
dollar bills, y'all,
the pressure shifts. And I think it's reasonable now to hold these players to a higher standard when you're getting
dollar bills, y'all,
over the table as opposed to just under the table where the player may not even actually know. It may just be their family members and those that are around them. But from Liberty's standpoint, I think it's reasonable to say you're frustrated with it. But Jamie Chadwell mentioned that one of the things about Liberty is he was acknowledging it. What we all saw. Jacksonville State, they were the better team because they, if nothing else, just didn't beat themselves.
We beat ourselves in some ways, as I mentioned already, and that's a disappointing thing is we had some chances and had a touchdown called back, missed a 15, 20-yard field goal with chip shot. That's a 10-point swing right there, and we had a chance to win this game and get off to a good start, but unfortunately we didn't. So it gives us an opportunity to regroup and go back to work this coming week.
And Liberty's got those opportunities. I know the win against or the loss to Jacksonville State stings in the sense that it's a Conference USA loss. You don't get a chance to play Western Kentucky, and I know they got beat by Toledo, but Jason Candle's one of the better G5 coaches at Toledo, so I don't totally ding Western Kentucky for that. And, heck, who knows? Maybe Jason Candle will be on his way to Blacksburg in the near future. You don't know how things are going to shake out, but I would not rule it past that to be a candidate. So maybe in hindsight, that loss will look even more understandable for Western Kentucky. Funny how these things just all tie back together.
Ed, do you think JMU's coach would get poached by Virginia Tech?
Possible, but the only reason I would be more skeptical is there's less of a body of work in the 1A FBS ranks because he came from Holy Cross, whereas Candle's done it for a while at Toledo. And despite the fact that they've had their players poached, I'll use Quinyon Mitchell as an example, the cornerback for the Eagles. I'll use Darius Alexander, who was a defensive lineman drafted in the 3rd round for the Giants as an example. But why, that would be a fit if I'm, putting a list together for Virginia Tech. And I don't think it's unreasonable if you're a Hokies fan to start putting your hot seat list together of who you'd want to take over for Brent Pry.
Yeah.
I think Matt Campbell at Iowa State would be my dream hire because he's developed talent. He's shown he can consistently win. And if you can pay him more to come to the ACC and, it's a bit of a bigger profile job, Iowa State, not the profile, but there's also not the pressure. And he's got a good thing going there and he just may not want to leave. And I get that. But if I'm putting that together, the fact that Candle's been able to take two guys that were 1st, 2nd, 3rd round pick players in the NFL draft and get them to stick at Toledo in an era where Nick Saban openly admitted that they tried to get Quinyon Mitchell to enter the transfer portal. He didn't, stayed at Toledo anyway because he liked the culture there. And Darius Alexander, a defensive lineman, and if you're going to be a day 2D lineman pick, you'll get big money to go to the bigger school in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
That to me speaks volumes about a Jason Candle spot. So I bring all that, though, to tie it back into the Western Kentucky loss. I don't think that's going to necessarily look horrible at the end of the year for Conference USA, but the sting for Liberty is you missed a chance against Jacksonville State, and even though JMU is in a non-conference game next weekend, 3:30 kick, by the way, 4 season tickets that include that game are at insaneradiodeals.com, so grab them now. Great deals at insaneradiodeals.com. But that's the reason why for Liberty. And meanwhile, for Virginia, to kind of tie this all up before we get to JMU, Liberty tomorrow, but JMU, Virginia, and Virginia Tech, the thing that I would look at from a Virginia standpoint is the fact that I have concerns about Tony Elliott. And they're very reasonable in terms of his acumen as an X's and O's coach. But I do think they're in a bit of a different spot, as evidenced by this quote about falling short at NC State.
It's ACC football. You got to find a way. They got in position to kick the field goal. That's where we got to produce right there. That's not necessarily on the offense. And had a turnover there driving. 4th and 1. Difference was they made a 4th and 1. We didn't. Right. So they made a critical play when we didn't. But do it all over again. Super proud of the guys. Thought they battled their tails off. Thought we grew up a little bit as a football team. But still, no moral victories. We came down here to win.
Even though it sounded like there were some comments of moral victories at the end for Tony Elliott. And by the way, he's wrong. It's not an ACC game. It's technically a non-ACC game. So he's technically wrong about that. But it's a familiar ACC opponent for Virginia. The real reason why I let that slide more than anything is I just think there's enough offensive firepower at Virginia that they're going to flat out outscore other teams. Whereas at Virginia Tech, I haven't seen this before. And the roster, they had that type of offensive firepower the last couple of years and just have not been able to get it going. Not to mention Pry's a defensive guy, and it's been a struggle there. So guess what, Hokie fans? We'll talk more Hokies in the back half of part 1 of Covering the Commonwealth. But when we return, the moral victories are the focus at the beginning because we're so bad at football in Virginia. We don't have wins to discuss, but we've got some moral victories for college football. So we will get to that when we return in Covering the Commonwealth part 1 on the VTR in Sports app. And ask that smart speaker, open VTR in Sports.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Subaru. Love to drive? Then you'll love the all-new 2025 Subaru Wilderness family. These cars are built for adventure with symmetrical all-wheel drive, rugged capability, and legendary Subaru reliability. These stylish vehicles are ready for anything. Plus, every new Subaru we sell comes with an exclusive Terry Promise, a lifetime powertrain warranty. Visit us on Forest Road in Lynchburg or browse our inventory online 24/7 at terrysubaru.com. Terry Subaru. You'll love our cars.
Love the outdoors, but not the bugs or dealing with the weather? Call Collins Custom Builders today to plan your sunroom or screen porch. Vaulted ceilings and windows all around, we can help you design your dream space to enjoy the outdoors while staying comfortable. Our customers have relied on us for 35 years to provide the best in service and materials. See some of our projects online at collinscustombuilders.com. Plan early and call today for your free estimate.
Is it time for a new place to call home? Moving out on your own? Perhaps your existing lease is up for renewal. Looking for a new roommate? Or maybe you just need a change of scenery. Then you need to check out brownstoneproperties.com. We have Central Virginia's largest selection of apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. Applying is easy with our online application. Visit us online to begin your search at brownstoneproperties.com.
Monday in the morning warm-up reaction to the first full weekend on football, week 2 in college football, week 1 in the NFL, including, we had to talk about it, the bleak future for Brent Pry at Virginia Tech. Tuesday, Lake Lewis joins us, Commanders NFL insider, to give his thoughts on the Commanders' win against the Giants and what to expect when they take on the Packers on Thursday night. Join us in the morning warm-up, weekday morning, 7 8 a.m. on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, 1320 a.m., and on the VTRN Sports app.
The Money Shot. You could describe many views in the Lynchburg area as the Money Shot, but on this TrostLaw.com Fast Take, we're discussing the Virginia Cavaliers' money shot paying off this past Saturday in their season-opening victory against Coastal Carolina. Yes, the jury is still out, but the fact that Tony Elliott even admitted after the victory against Coastal that a large part of the success is due to Carla Williams and the Virginia staff finding ways to invest in talent, but for paying them, speaks to the money shot paying off.
Virginia's source for sports. VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Oh, yeah, we're celebrating moral victories here in the Fast Lane, including
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the JMU Dukes.
Shane Metlin at Shane_DNR Sports on Twitter and at DNRonline.com. Shane, great to be speaking with you. Shane Metlin with us here in the Fast Lane. Shane, was that a moral victory for the Dukes? Not getting a win out in Louisville, but fighting hard to the end against a team that many expect to be in that top quadrant of the ACC.
I don't think so. Not this time. You kind of look at like what JMU was able to do. They controlled the line of scrimmage for the most part in that game. Like they really had what looks like to be the better, more athletic players at most spots on the field. They've put together a really good roster and frankly just kind of let that one get away from them. And I don't think it was a moral victory this time around.
Is there added pressure because, and no one knows how the season will go for Florida, but if JMU's got aspirations of making the college football playoff, that they now missed an opportunity on the same weekend where Florida went on the road, or USF went on the road and capitalized on theirs, getting, at least in name, a marquee win at Florida.
Yeah, I think there is some pressure, but like you said, we don't know. It's really early to start talking about like who's got what wins in the playoffs. Like you said, by the end of the season, maybe we won't view Florida or Boise State or anything as great wins, and maybe we'll look at Louisville differently as far as like what they do in the ACC. It's early to kind of really get onto that, but yeah, right now they're not the choice if it ended today, and luckily for JMU it doesn't end today, but yeah, I mean it does put them in a little tougher situation for sure.
Your colleague Katie Harper was at the press conference today and has the tweet up that you retweeted, if you can follow that one, Shane_DNR Sports, about the 2-quarterback system with Alonzo Barnett III and Matt Saluka. What would your assessment be of how Bob Chesney has used that and is handling that oftentimes frowned upon dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who want to just do away with the 2-quarterback system altogether, and I'm not necessarily there quite yet, but I was a little surprised with how it was used against Louisville in particular. Just, they seem to really kind of stay regimented with, Sluka was in there like early in the drives, first and second down, and then they were just repeatedly putting Alonzo Barnett back in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 type situations, and that's a tough way to enter the game. I think they've really got to mix it up a lot more on how they use the two quarterbacks, and it was almost the opposite of what I would have expected. I would have expected to see more of Barnett on first downs and hoping to create 3rd and short situations for Sluka to come into, rather than kind of almost always like setting Barnett up for a 3rd and manageable but still long when a lot of those drives.
Shane_DNR Sports with us here in the fast lane for Shane Metlin. Shane, last one for you. How much of this week now, off before the Liberty Prep Week begins next week, how much of it is spent putting extra wrinkles together for a Liberty team that, there's clearly a rivalry for, and we'll delve into that next week in the fast lane?
Yeah, I mean, I think, they'll definitely be putting in some wrinkles. I think they've got more creative ways, I think, to use the two quarterbacks and the variety of running backs and things. And we see little bits and pieces in practice sometimes of things they might be able to do with that. And I think they'll expand on the packages. But, I think this bye week is going to probably be a lot about trying to just figure out exactly how you're going to use the personnel that you have.
Shane, great to speak with you. We'll be chatting again next week, previewing the big JMU Liberty game, to which our listeners can get tickets as part of the season ticket package we're offering, or packages that we're offering at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Thank you for your time today in the Fast Lane.
All right, thanks, Ed.
Shane Metlin with us here in the Fast Lane.
Now to UVA.
With JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor, Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe. Hootie, for the Virginia Cavaliers, did you get the sense Tony Elliott was thinking moral victory the way they went down to NC State and hung in there and had a chance late? Or is he in a spot where he understands that there was an opportunity that slipped away when that ball was thrown, a poor decision by Chandler Morris at the end of the game?
I think more the latter, Ed. I don't think he believes in moral victories, and certainly the fan base doesn't. They've suffered through enough of those moral victories over the years. They want some W's in the column. I think they just let this one slip through their fingers. There's no way they should have lost that game having a first down, or they were with over a minute left. And it was just a really bad decision on a veteran quarterback's part. It was a rookie mistake from a guy who is in his sixth year of college football, and there's really no excuse for it. I'll give him credit when the game was over, he owned it. He said no way he should have thrown the ball, but I have to kind of question that play call too. I'm not sure it was maybe the best play call for first down, but and certainly they had plenty of time if he had just thrown that ball away, they had plenty of other opportunities to stick it in the end zone, which they had been pretty good at all day.
How much of the added pain is the fact that this is a Virginia offense that churned out over 500 yards, but they weren't able to capitalize on the most important drive they put together, which is marching down into the red zone late in the game?
Yeah, well, they were at the 30, the 8, and the 12 on their last three possessions and walked away with nothing. And, all those numbers are nice, but they don't mean anything if you can't put a W beside of it. That was we talked all preseason about how important this game was, that if they wanted to build early season momentum and possibly win 7 or 8 games, and maybe even be undefeated when Florida State comes to town at the end of the month, then this was a crucial contest. And losing a game that on the road that they could have easily won, it's got to leave a terrible taste in their mouth, because now that just makes the job more of an uphill climb.
Hootie, how likely is it that Virginia can get their run defense issues resolved when they were a real issue against NC State and kind of negated the great day that Jamari Taylor had as he's blossomed into a key playmaker for Virginia?
Yeah, well, the defense was atrocious. As good as the offense was, the defense was just as bad. I think over time they can do that, and they'll play William and Mary this week. So I don't know how much they'll be tested. Stanford, I think, has a decent running game. They'll be here in 2 weeks, but that's something that they've got to correct as soon as possible because, if you can't stop the run, then you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball, and you're at the mercy of the other team because they can do anything they want if they control the line of scrimmage. And certainly NC State did. Hollywood Smothers looked like O.J. Simpson running through people, but it was an embarrassment, I would think, for the defensive coordinator because they had really hadn't been tested, but this was their first test and they failed it miserably.
Yes, indeed. It was not a very good defensive test at all. And for as much money as they've invested, that's where the criticism gets ramped up. Jerry, thank you for your time in the fast lane. We are always grateful when we can connect.
Great to be with you, as always. Appreciate you, buddy.
Now to the Virginia Tech Hokies.
David Cunningham of TechSideline.com with us here in the fast lane. David, we would be playing the rant, but we don't want to overkill it since it was already used to start the TSL podcast today. The Jim Mora rant about diddly poo, although there were some expletives that he also threw in there, and we're going to just kind of keep those out for the convenience sake of not having to deal with the FCC. This loss to Vanderbilt. We'll get to the big picture ramifications momentarily, but how much of this for Virginia Tech boiled down to the fact that, once again, halftime adjustments, seemingly, or in-game adjustments at all, have eluded this coaching staff?
Yeah, Ed, I think that's spot on. I also think offensively, the Hokies are down some depth on the offensive line. Now, that goes back to Brent Pry, and the Hokies have to recruit better and develop better, and that's a position that's had plenty of turnover. This is the third offensive line coach in the last 4 seasons. That position could end up being Brent Pry's downfall. But defensively, the Hokies, didn't adjust at all, to your point. I think the offensive struggles went back to not being able to protect. They're down 4 of their top 7 linemen including 2 starters. That hurts. But defensively, there's not much of an excuse. The Hokies got ran over, ran through, ran around. Diego Pavia lowered his shoulder a couple times and ran the Hokies over. I mean, just time and time again, Virginia Tech could not get off the field. And even in the moments where it looked like Tech might. And Tech only had 2 penalties all night, but one of the most costly ones, it was second and 19, I think. And Vanderbilt completed like a 25-yard catch, and Ben Bell had a roughing the passer tacked onto it. So Vandy ended up getting 40 yards out of it, right? Just bad situational football in some regard. And overall, just not good football, period. When you get outgained like 307-21 and a half, that is ridiculously bad. And there are a lot of things that contribute to that, but in-game adjustments are a part of it. And Virginia Tech, it was like the Hokies just rolled over and let the Commodores do whatever they wanted to in the second half. That was one of the worst halves of football I've seen in a very long time.
So that was terrible, the second half of that game. There's so many angles in which you can go beyond this matchup, one of which is this the end? I mean, is this on par with the Syracuse game for Justin Fuente, where you're sitting there going, we know the end is now here. Now it's just a matter of how this unfolds. Or is there, I'm going to curse because we beeped this word out, is there hope that they might be able to actually turn this around, as nebulous as that hope might actually be?
Yeah, I think this is the end. I genuinely do. I think it's kind of just a matter of time, Ed. It's funny. Look, I look back. I spent some time in the office earlier talking to Chris Coleman, looking back at some of the old stories Tech Sideline published back in 2020 when the Fuente saga was going on, and about how this might be the end for Whit Babcock. Well, it wasn't, and he got 5 more years. And since he held that press conference in December of 2020, where he doubled down on Fuente and said Fuente was coming back, well, Fuente only lasted 1 more season, then got the boot. Brent Pry's been in there. The Hokies are 22-30 since that press conference. I think this is the end for both Whit Babcock and Brent Pry. It's just a matter of when. It sounds like it'll start, stuff will start to swirl. I'm sure coming soon. Sounds like there's already some stuff behind the scenes going on, but who knows when it actually happens. With Babcock a couple weeks ago, Ed, we talked about this, went to the Board of Visitors and asked for basically $50 million. And now the question for the Board of Visitors is Whit Babcock really the athletic director we want to give that money to? The BOV is expected to make a kind of a decision, an announcement on that kind of money on September 30th. Is that when something comes on Whit Babcock? I'm not sure, but I think people can tell that this is the end. It doesn't make any sense to delay it any longer, unless you magically believe that the Hokies can turn this thing around, which to this point, Brent Pryce lost 6 of his last 7 games and is 16-23 all time. And it's just a tough situation all around. And I think it is, as Chris Coleman detailed yesterday in his article, it is time for new change. It just has trended this way for a very long time. And I think those at the top hoped the Hokies could right the ship and right the ship and right the ship. And if anything showed in that second half of that loss to Vanderbilt on Saturday, where the Hokies got outscored 34-0, it's that it ain't happening with these people in charge. And that goes for Whit Babcock, too, who his last 3 football hires have all been duds. So as Andy Bitter put it in his column after the game on Saturday, Brent Pryce's job is on the brink. And I think it's time. It's just kind of a matter of when, Ed. And it's a complicated situation, as we detailed on our podcast. It's not going to happen quickly. Whether or not it happens soon is TBD. But I think the cards are on the table, and it's just a matter of who cleans it up when.
Is this also a reason why you don't give out these type of extensions? Because prize buyout is $6 million. And I know Virginia Tech paid $8.5 million as the settlement from that 7 versus 10 for Justin Fuente and settling in the middle when they paid him to go away. But you're not looking at like a $60 million buyout for Kalen DeBoer or $73 million or whatever it was for Jimbo Fisher. This is $6 million. Relatively speaking, is it reasonable to say that Virginia Tech's at the point where $6 million you hate to eat, but keeping them around may cost you a lot more than that in a number of ways?
Absolutely. Keeping both the athletic director, and I think that's about $1 million, a little bit more than that, and this coaching staff for football around, in the long run, it will cost you. These Virginia Tech fans have gone through a lot. And in an era where fans are donating their money, but also schools are putting money into their own players now, where players are getting paid directly, you have to have results. This Virginia Tech football program has not shown results under Brent Pryce. It's only gone backwards. The Hokies were 3-8 in his first season, then won 7 games, including a bowl game. Then went back to 6 wins last year in a year where they should have won more because of the amount of talent they had. It's amazing, Ed, turning on that Ravens-Bills game last night and watching Dorian Strong play very, very well, starting for the Bills. That's the kind of talent Virginia Tech had on that roster last year and didn't do anything with. And then you start 0-2, and the way you start 0-2, it doesn't go to give fans confidence that you can turn this thing around. So I look at this and go, I'm not really sure how in the world you can fix it. And as you detailed, keeping this intact for longer, the only thing it might do is damage the program longer in the long run, because the fans have, I think, waited long enough for the people in charge at Virginia Tech to do something and to give them hope again. And what they're getting right now, what these fans have been watching, it's kind of dreadful, honestly, specifically that second half. I think there was some hope after that opener, but nothing they saw on Saturday against Vanderbilt, I think, gives off any hope. And I don't know how the rest of the season is going to go, Ed, but yeah, I think you do yourself long-term damage in the long run. The longer you keep this AD and these, football staff around. And it's a bummer because I like a lot of those people, but business is business. You have to win games, and everybody knows that. And unfortunately, it's kind of come that time.
So we'll wrap it up on this. And we aren't going to get into the next candidates and next steps and everything. You've kind of detailed about things moving behind the scenes. And I'm sure there'll be more at The Real D Cunna on Twitter and Instagram and techsideline.com, as well as TSL podcasts. But tell me if this comparison is off base or not. Brent Pry to Virginia Tech. I'm paying Hokie fans with this, but it's coming. He's what Mike London was to Virginia. He followed the successor of the legend and likable personality, but the X's and O's acumen and the ability to manage everything in the game ultimately did not yield the results that should have been justified based on the talent that was available. And at some point, there were just clear moments that said, this thing's got to end or else it's going to get worse.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. I think the only difference there is Brent Pry's beaten UVA, has lost to the Cavaliers. That's really the only difference I can find there, Ed. I think that is actually a really good comp. I think the tough part is after Justin Fuente, the Hokies wanted to go a different direction. They wanted somebody who understood Virginia Tech, who was going to recruit Virginia and recruit the footprint, somebody who would be that person that fans can get along with. There's ties to the Frank Beamer tree there. Brett Pry's a likable guy. He's a nice guy. He gets along with the fans. He says the right things. And I think he does a lot of the right things behind the scenes in terms of recruiting. And I think he actually did a pretty good job in the offseason of hiring the right people. But the problem is, if you don't capitalize on your opportunities when they come, AKA last season with the amount of talent the Hokies had, you might not get many other chances. And the other problem is he's not a very good on-field coach. He's almost the exact opposite of Fuente, who was really, really good on the field but had problems retaining players. And you get to this point where it just becomes too much, where you can't overcome it anymore. And I hope that Virginia Tech is able to turn it around, but I don't think it's really possible given what we have seen from this staff, from this era. And it's disappointing because a lot of people have bought into it. A lot of people, not just, in terms of administration at Virginia Tech, but fans. You pour so much into it, all for it to just kind of fizzle up in the first two games of the year. If you remember, it took Justin Fuente a long time in that 2021 season for it to really turn. It was that Syracuse game in October. We're talking 2 games in, and everybody already knows. But I think it's obvious. I'm not sure if Brent Pry really knows, or maybe he just doesn't say he knows. But I think everybody else can kind of feel it. And I think the fans are united on this one and can kind of see the writing on the wall. And it's a bummer because, like you said, you can do so many of the right things, but it all comes down to winning football games.
And ultimately, it just hasn't happened for Brent Pry. Meanwhile, the insight is always winning at techsideline.com. It's worth a subscription for insider access. And of course, it's also worth listening to the TSL podcast with the latest reaction to the Vandy loss having dropped earlier today. David, thank you for your time in the Fast Lane. We always love connecting with you and look forward to chatting again.
Much appreciated. Talk to you soon.
David Cunningham with us in the Fast Lane. When we return, part 2 of covering the Commonwealth. Winning Commanders, Denny Hamlin, the Virginia driver in the Lou, and the Lynchburg Hillcats getting ready for the playoffs. All that still to come. This is the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app, and has that smart speaker open VTRN Sports.
It's so worth the drive to big savings at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Shop local and save more with exceptional service and selection. Your search stops here with over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, plus a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you more choices with pre-owned cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. More than any other dealer in the area, plus exceptional service, selection, savings, and financing options, and top dollar for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with 11 new car brands and over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. And we're proud to support our local schools and community. The Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier car dealer, locally and family-owned for over 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Hi, I'm Matt with Fleet Feet Roanoke. I've enjoyed working with Ed Lane and the Virginia Talk Radio Network, but when they sold their Roanoke station, I was skeptical the partnership could still provide value. Months later, I'm thankful that Ed took the time to meet with me, discuss the right solutions, and a plan to invite his audience to Fleet Feet Roanoke. Now we're able to build a connection with that audience thanks to Ed's creativity. Stop by and see us at Fleet Feet Roanoke to learn more. We'd love to get to know you.
Email info@virginiatalkradionetwork.com to start growing your business.
Warm weather means traveling. Hi, I'm Randy Trost from Trost Law with a couple of safety reminders. Always wear your seatbelt. Don't drive distracted or impaired. And remember, it's better to safely arrive a little later than being in an auto accident. Those things can make a big difference between a fun family trip or a painful alternative. At Trost Law, I hope you never need our services, but if you do, we're here to help you at 777-HURT or trostlaw.com.
Feel the excitement, experience the intensity. Castle Coliseum comes alive when Hokie basketball takes the court.
He made it on 1 foot. Lead, it's down.
From buzzer beaters to hard-fought battles, Virginia Tech men's and women's basketball takes on the toughest teams in the ACC.
Step up and in. Here come the Hokies. Sully Ross.
Don't just hear about it, be there. Tickets on sale now at Hokiesports.com.
Summertime means hot temperatures, but hot deals are at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Check out great deals from the Lynchburg Hillcats, both general public and premium reserve tickets at the site right now. Try scuba classes from Aqua Trek Adventures. Plus, one of the best deals at all, Linux and Lynchburg bed liners, a $700 value for only $567. Hot deals during this hot summer at InsaneRadioDeals.com.
Hey, this is Virginia Tech analyst and former Hokies tight end Mike Burnham. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
One down, one to go. Part 2 of covering the Commonwealth.
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth. A look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with, just for you haters, left hand up the Commanders.
Washington, 21-6. Intra-division victory over the New Jersey Giants. They're based in Jersey. They play in Jersey. So we'll call them the New Jersey Giants just for the amusement of our next guest, Madam President Candy Waller of Bowie TV Sports. With us in the fast lane, Seawall, great to be speaking with you. Is the most impressive part of the Washington Commanders' victory yesterday the fact that that defense smothered Russell Wilson and never let him get in the offense, him and that offense get into any kind of a groove, taking Malik Neighbors out of the game and really limiting check down options as well?
Absolutely. I mean, there's just not enough that any of us can say about what the Washington Commanders defense did yesterday. I know there's a lot that's saying, wow, that Giants offensive line is not good at all. True, all true. And in that case, the Commanders defense did exactly what you would expect them to, right? If they're going up against a not so good at all offensive line. Outstanding performance by that group.
So Candy Waller's with us in the fast lane, and we're touching on the Washington Commanders 21-6 victory over the Giants. Daron Payne, is he better than he's been in prior years? Has he taken a step forward in leadership? Is it because this Giants offensive line is just not good, or would you put this in the all of the above category?
I would put it in the all of the above category. Back during OTAs, we were talking a lot with Daron about that leadership, right? And then in conversations with defensive line coach Daryl Tapp, he also shared with us that he presented a challenge to Daron, right? He said, we can see the leadership. We can see the type A alpha male that you are. Show it, be it. It's okay. This is the kind of environment that you will thrive in. And Daron took that to heart and very, very personally. And we all saw that on full display yesterday.
We've touched on the defensive side of the ball. Jaden Daniels, how much is this performance a sign of his maturity? That there's certain games where he needs to be a hero, and he was effective in the first half rushing the ball and very good throwing, but it seemed like he understood what was asked of him as this game unfolded, which was to make plays when they were there, but also, and this term is thrown around negatively, but Jalen Hurts is fantastic at it, and he's got a Super Bowl MVP and could have had another, manage the game when the moments are at their biggest leverage points.
I think he did some good. I think he did some good things, and we also saw some moments for Jaden Daniels where he still needs to improve and grow and learn, right? And that's to be expected in his second year. And he was open and transparent about that as well. He mentioned in his after-game presser that, hey, that game was pretty sloppy offensively, right? Good thing for the defense and the way that they showed up. But there's some things that need to be cleaned up offensively. Yet and still, you still saw the poise, you still saw the calm, you still saw the accuracy at times. But hey, there's definitely between he and the receiver some things they need to work on.
Yeah, it's amazing that part of it. That we're nitpicking Jaden Daniels, but so is he, and the opportunity to grow and measuring himself up against the best in the NFL. Last one for you, Seawall. In so many years, special teams have been a disaster. I get it. This is the Giants again. And so we are grading on a little bit of a curve. NFC East rival, yes, but the Giants are a team with a coaching staff on the hot seat. How impressed were you with not just the punter Tress Way, but the coverage units for the Washington Commanders and the fact that it seems like that third phase of the game is something that's been much more cleaned up?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely what the team likes to call their anchor, their flagship position. That is the position group that gets it going. They set the tone for the offense and the defense. It's really that special teams unit. Everybody has said that across the board. That's actually who sets the tone for the game. You saw some big moments, but still, Coach Quinn told us that there's still some areas in there that they need to clean up as well. So, wow, what will this look like when they clean those areas up?
Last one for Candy Waller, Seawall SE on Twitter, CEO Seawall on Instagram, and Bowie TV Sports on both to keep up with Madam President's company. That is Candy Waller with us in the fast lane. Micah Parsons, we meet again if you're a Commanders fan. Thursday night, 7:30, VTRN Sports app with Washington at Green Bay. And one of these early season primetime games, not just in slot, but in terms of importance for setting the NFC hierarchy.
Listen, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not necessarily looking forward to seeing Micah Parsons on Thursday night. Maybe the Commanders don't care about it. Hey, it's just another opponent. But there is a lot to be expected. The Green Bay Packers looked very good against the Detroit Lions yesterday. So this will be a tough matchup for the Commanders. There will be a lot to be seen here on Thursday night.
There will, and we'll see it all at Seawall SE on Twitter and CEO Seawall on Instagram. Candy, thank you for your time as always in the Fast Lane. We love connecting with you.
Absolutely, and I love connecting with you all. I'll be talking to you guys again soon.
Our boots on the ground at Lambeau Field, and you'll be able to listen to it, of course. Commanders at Packers VTR and Sports app this coming Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Meanwhile,
now to NASCAR.
Caleb Barnes of FrontStretch.com stopping by with us here in the Fast Lane today. Caleb, great to be speaking with you. Denny Hamlin gets the win, but it's a bigger picture of what happened in the St. Louis. The fact that through two races, it looks like Toyota and especially Joe Gibbs Racing separating themselves. It's early in the chase, 2 of 10 races, but separating themselves as a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, they've looked strong so far. And I know after Darlington, a lot of talk was where were the Hendrick Chevrolets. They looked like they showed some improvement on these flat tracks. But, I mean, if those Joe Gibbs Toyotas are hard to beat at every sort of track that we go to, then, I mean, you're going to have to look at those guys. I know Christopher Bell was one heading into the playoffs. He loved the way that the rounds laid out for him. And I feel like just the way that things went last year where he kind of got the short end of the stick at Martinsville, I feel like he was motivated enough to make it to Phoenix. But the speed out of the gate from the 11 and the 19, I mean, Denny's been fast all year, but just kind of, he's kind of up and down a little bit throughout the summer. But then Chase Briscoe is turning that qualifying speed into some real race speed as well. And your guy Ty Gibbs is running up there a little bit as well with those Legacy Motor Club Toyotas. So all those Toyotas are fast, but especially that trio of the 11, 19, and 20. I think those are going to be some real contenders down the stretch, deep into the round of 8, and potentially looking at all three of them vying for those spots at Phoenix.
Well, as long as Chase Briscoe's in that discussion, since I happen to have a 28-1 bet on him to win the championship from a few months ago, I would be most elated if that happens. But I'm already expecting something ridiculous for him and Connor Zilic at 7-1 to cause those bets to combust in my face before it matters. So, I'm going to curse for a second. The hope that I get one or better yet, both of those is very low. But one of the reasons why, when it comes to the Chase Briscoe side of things, is Hendrick Motorsports. Did they turn the corner, or is this enough to say, all right, they're figuring things out, which means they're stepping in the right direction.
I think it's a step in the right direction. You could say turning the corner. I do sort of wonder if it's maybe like an odd year type of thing, because they had some speed. If I remember back to the 2023 race, they had some faster cars at Gateway, and then they really struggled there last year. But I think they were confident about their kind of, I hate to say flat track program, but these shorter, flatter ovals, they've been confident about it since, I think, Byron, and whenever he won at Iowa, he mentioned it. And you heard Jeff Gordon make some comments after maybe a disappointing run at Darlington. And I mean, who knows, maybe they've gone all in on this Team Penske strategy of, really the only tracks that matter are Gateway, St. Louis, and New Hampshire and Martinsville. And then there you go. You got to get at least one of your cars into Phoenix. And if they've got this flat track stuff sorted out, then they could very well. They've been good at Phoenix in the spring in the past couple of years. And then for whatever reason, that hasn't translated to those races in the fall. This year, I feel like they were kind of missing some of that speed earlier in the spring. And who knows, maybe they found that Team Penske secret for success to kind of take that spot of those Fords and make a run at the championship here. It's been quite a while since they've won, really anybody since Team Penske, since we went to this next gen car. It's been a while since anybody else has won the championship at Phoenix.
Caleb Barnes _ Twitter and Instagram, and frontstretch.com. He is the host of the Stock Car Scoop podcast, which recaps the race each weekend. It drops Monday mornings in your podcast feed. Of the four drivers that are on the outside looking in, Austin Dillon, Shane Van Gisbergen, Alex Bowman, and Josh Berry, which one do you have the most? Which one do you have the least confidence would be able to rally with a win at Bristol to reverse their fortunes?
If we're talking wins, it might sound odd, but I actually feel really good about Josh Berry, that short track background. Although looking back, I was there in the spring, and Alex Bowman was running pretty well until he had an engine failure late in the race. But I don't know that I expect tremendous things out of any of these guys. I think the biggest worry is for Shane Van Gisbergen, and he really struggled there in the spring, was far off the pace, which this is his second time back at the racetrack. So maybe he's found some stuff in his oval program that he's really shown some great improvement at. But I just have zero confidence in him after seeing what he did in the spring. But I'm more so looking at the guys above the cut line and wondering if they'll slide down the ranks and kind of close the gap and come to the guys who are below the cut line. I think like Dillon and SVG are the two that really would be able to close the points gap. And between those two, I think Dillon is the only one who might be able to stick together a good enough run. But Cindric, I don't know that I'm super confident about his skill at Bristol. And then Joey Logano, for whatever reason, in this next-gen car has just not had it figured out at Bristol. And I think back to that 2023 race when he also had some issues and got knocked out. And I know this Bristol night race is, or what really this Bristol concrete race in general, has turned into a bit of just a long, drawn-out race. But something about that nighttime being the right time, it causes some attrition. It causes a little bit of that extra urgency for some of these playoff guys. And I think you got to look out for some of those guys who are, 20, 25 points feels like a lot, but an early incident can make that gap go away in a hurry.
Indeed it can. Meanwhile, we don't want him to go away in a hurry, but he has to. Caleb Barnes of frontstretch.com, Caleb Barnes _ on Twitter and Instagram, and the Front Stretch Stock Car Scoop podcast. Caleb, thank you for joining us today in the Fast Lane. We're waiting for Bristol already this coming Saturday, and what wraps up round one of the chase and what should be a thriller.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me, Ed.
Caleb Barnes with us in the Fast Lane on W227BG Timberlake, WVGMA in Lynchburg, WMNA, Gretna, Danville, Southside, and VTRN Sports app powered by ESPN Radio.
And last but not least, or maybe least, the Lynchburg Hillcats.
Jason Prill with us in the Fast Lane. Jason, glad to be speaking with you. Hillcats go 3-2. The game yesterday against Delmarva was canceled because of inclement weather. It's not going to be made up. It has no impact on the Hillcats and the Frednats, who will get underway tomorrow night in the first of potentially 3 games in the Carolina League playoffs. Jason, great to be speaking with you. From that particular performance, is it the pitching, once again, that we can point to and say, while the offense has been hit or miss, the pitching has really seemingly found their groove the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think you're right, Ed. I think the pitching is really starting to find the form that we saw in the first half of the season that helped carry them to the first half crown. And it's one of those things where if everything is clicking for the Hillcats, there might not be a better team in the Carolina League. And so that's what everybody's hoping for. That's what everybody's looking for over the next couple of days. The rest of this week is that everything will start to click. The pitching will continue on. The starting pitching will be strong. We've seen great outings from Joey Oakey, who will be opening up the postseason tomorrow on the road at Fredericksburg. Our bullpen's been looking sharper. And the lineup, at times, it's been clicking. So if all those things can piece together in really 2 games of the next week, the Hillcats have a chance to make it to the championship.
6:35 p.m. tomorrow evening or late afternoon in Fredericksburg for Game 1. Game 2, Thursday, 6:30 p.m. in the Hill City against Fredericksburg. And if necessary, Friday night would feature a third game at 5 p.m. What confidence is there for the Lynchburg Hillcats? In part because they've also played Fredericksburg and played them very well just a week and change ago.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of confidence. This team's coming in off of a high. Now they're facing a team that has 13 walk-offs on the season. They're very good at home, but the benefit for Lynchburg is they only have 1 game at home. Yes, they clinched their postseason berth on a walk-off grand slam, but that's 1 game. The next game they came out, they won, and then they lost going into the postseason. They've played 21 games in 21 days, including losing the series at Lynchburg a few weeks ago. So the Hillcats have a lot to be feeling positive about and a lot to be looking forward to. They know they can beat them. They're confident that they can beat them. And these guys, they're not afraid of anything. A lot of them are coming straight out of College World Series appearances or big or SEC conference championship appearances. So the Carolina League to them might seem even small. Not that it is, but to them, they've played in big games. They've played in front of big crowds. They've played in front of packed houses. So going into Fredericksburg, going into that hostile environment, they're not scared. They know they can beat the Fred Naps, and Lynchburg really has something rolling for them.
They really do. We'll see what transpires. Jason Pro with us here in the Fast Lane. Jason, great to be speaking with you, and good Lord willing, we'll have more games to preview next week.
Absolutely. Hope to be talking to you a week from today.
Jason Pro with us in the Fast Lane. That does it for us today. That's how we wrap it up. A little bit over, but maybe better than we've been in prior years. Meanwhile, got to kill that dial tone, TJ, as we have to kill our time today in the Fast Lane as well. On to regular ESPN radio before 7:30 p.m. Can Trey's guy, Caleb Williams, start his second year off on a better foot than the first season when they welcome the Minnesota Vikings? Find out on your home for the best play-by-play, the VTRN Sports app and VTRN Sports powered by ESPN Radio. Back to ESPN Radio in progress.
I think we may have a bye week or something, but it was enough time to, for the grass to get back together before we play back on it. So, there are multiple things that you can do.
Maybe the Bears are doing things in the cheap.